The wind moves like breath through the broken bones of an abandoned village. Evening has fallen, and the land does not sing. There is no laughter from doorways, no ring of iron on stone, no cry of cattle across the valley. Only the whisper of cold through wood long surrendered to rot. Thatch roofs sag like old backs, their weight too heavy to carry the memory of shelter. Moss grows fat in the corners. Shadows gather in doorways. And somewhere, hidden by weeds, a small altar stands forgotten, unprayed, depicted at by a lone black crow. This is not just a ruin, it is a question. A wound in the earth, long scabbed over, still aching. They called it a collapse. Rome had stretched its arms too far, and when the arms snapped, the world grew quiet. They called it darkness. They called it the end. But what filled that silence? The answers are not in scrolls or in the mouths of kings. They are on the earth, soft, damp, heavy with rain and with memory. They are in places no one watched, beneath the lintel of a crumbling hut, in the lines of a child's grave where no name was carved, in the dust caught between stones where a monk once knelt alone and wrote his last line. A girl once stood barefoot at the edge of a clearing, hidden in the trees. Her village burned behind her torchlight, flickering against smoke and scream. In her small hand, she held a rope bell and a tin charm her mother had kissed once, before tucking it into her tunic. She did not cry. She only watched, lips parted, as the wind carried sparks into the night. That girl's name is not written in any book, but she was there. Elsewhere, a monk bent over his work, candle sputtering against the damp. Ink froze against the page as winter crept through the stones. He copied prayers onto crumbling parchment, words fading even as he wrote them. He did not know if any soul would ever read them. But still he wrote, word after word. Like sowing seeds into frost in a chamber of rough stone, a woman labored alone. Her breath came in broken gasps, and blood soaked into the cold floor. Outside, birds sang in Latin, their song unbroken by the cry that never came. Her name is lost, but the echo of her pain lingers in the stones. Was centuries they called dark, but darkness is not emptiness. It is the weight. It is a memory. It is all that was born without witness. They say the roads vanished, but the feet that once walked them did not. They carried sorrow, hunger, and hope. They walked to nowhere and built nothing. But still, they walked. They say the statues crumbled. But what of the hands that carved them, now blistered from tilling wild soil? What of the men who once debated in marble halls, now kneeling beside shallow graves? What really happened in the Dark Ages? There were prayers whispered under storm-thick skies. There were fields that outlived their farmers. There were songs hummed in languages no longer spoken. There were bells that rang even when no one came. History forgets what doesn't shout, but there is truth in the quiet. It lingers in stone, wood, and soil, in broken altars, in children's toys buried beneath floorboards, in the lines of a forgotten face drawn on a crumbling page. The dark did not mean death. It meant endurance. And beneath all of it, beneath ash, beneath silence, something waited. Glory. Not an empire. Just a flicker, a small flame, hidden in the palms of those who endured. And as the wind moves once more through the village, rustling what remains, it carries with it not despair, but memory. A whisper of what survived, because even in the darkest centuries, something always listened, and something always remained. Candlelight flickers across the damp stone walls, casting long shadows that dance like ghosts behind the scribe. The air is thick with cold, and every breath rises like mist. A boy sits hunched at a table, no older than 12, his thin fingers stained black with ink. The vellum before him is cracked with age, the edges curled like withered leaves. He dips his quill with trembling care. Outside, wind howls through the broken archways, weaving its way through the monastery like a spirit searching for something long lost. This is no palace. It is a shelter carved from the ribs of an older world, built with stone stolen from forgotten temples. The arches once stood for glory, now they gape open, teethless and torn. Ivy climbs through cracks like veins, rain pools in corners. It is part sanctuary, part tomb. Time does not walk here. It lingers. The year is uncertain. There are no calendars, no bells to mark the turning of months. Even the moon, when it rises, seems unsure, sometimes full when it should not be, sometimes absent when most needed. Time here moves like fog, silent, shapeless, and slow. The monks speak little. When they do, their Latin is soft, nearly whispered, as if speaking too loudly might crack the silence, and with it, the fragile hold they have on meaning. They do not sleep easily. In their prayers, there is a weariness that cannot be named. Yet they rise each day, kneel, chant, and write. They are keepers of fragments, a chipped statue of Jupiter, passed down through too many hands, a scroll of Virgil's verse, so faded only ghosts can read it. A simple clay bowl, rumored to be Gallic, kissed by fire in a century no one can name. They do not fully know what they preserve, only that these pieces must not vanish. Not again. Outside the walls, the world starves. Fields rot under unseasonal rains. Famine slinks from village to village, its fingers cold and patient. Rats scurry through granaries once filled with grain. The people eat bark, boil leather, pray to saints whose names are forgotten by the very priests who utter them. Death no longer comes with drums. It comes quietly, in the night, in the cough of a child, in the soft collapse of a mother onto her knees. The dead are buried in haste. No names, no crosses, just earth. Yet inside this stone shell, the boy writes. His name has not been carved into any history, but his hands move with the weight of it. Carefully, he copies the first words. In principio crevit Deus caelum et terram. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He has never seen a city, never heard a harp. He knows not the sea nor the grandeur of Rome. His world is stone and silent. Yet he writes as if memory itself depends on the motion of his hand. The candle beside him flutters. A drop of wax lands near his wrist. He does not flinch. He has never known peace, only duty. But something inside him, something wordless, believes that these words matter. That if he writes them, they will outlast the cold, the hunger, the forgetting. Ink is his rebellion, his shield, his prayer. He does not write for kings. He writes for a world that may never know him, for voices he'll never hear reply. But still, he writes. In the dark, something sacred is being stitched together, one fragile page at a time. The quill scratches softly, like a heartbeat in the quiet. Outside, the wind shifts, and a bell in the far tower rings a dull, slow sound, like a memory being summoned. The boy looks up, only for a moment. The candle wavers, the light thins, but the ink still gleams. Somewhere in the silence, a monk murmurs a psalm, his voice like dust on stone. Another opens a cabinet and touches a fragment of broken pottery, like it is a relic of Eden. The monastery endures not because it is strong, but because it remembers. And the boy, he writes as though salvation might come not with a sword, not from a throne, but from a word remembered at the end of the world. The candle gutters. The boy does not stop. Outside, famine and frost coil like wolves at the door. But here, beneath the weight of night and the hush of breathless prayers, a single hand keeps the light alive. One word at a time. A woman stands barefoot in the snow beside a frozen well. Her toes are blue with cold, half numb, half burning. Frost clings to the edge of her skirt like it's trying to pull her under. She lowers the bucket into the black throat of the well, but the rope moves with no sound. No splash, no resistance. Just the dry moan of wood and rope stretching toward emptiness. The bucket comes back heavy with silence. Her breath curls around her face in pale clouds. Her shawl, once woolen and red, is threadbare now, its edges gnawed by time. She tightens it across her shoulders with hands that have known too many winters. Behind her, the huts are shuttered like eyes that have seen too much. No smoke rises from their chimneys. No voices call from their doors. Somewhere far off, a baby cries. A thin, broken sound. It does not last long. No one answers. This is not winter. This is something older, something colder. A season without end. They call it the hollowing. It comes after the harvest fails. After the midwife dies and the priest is taken by fever or by the kind of fear that makes a man vanish without a word. No sacraments, no last rites. Just wind and silence. The land is still, but not at peace. It waits like an old wound. In the woman's hand is a rosary. Its beads are cracked, some missing. The crucifix is broken at the neck. She keeps it hidden in a piece of linen, tied at her waist with a strip of bark. She does not pray aloud. She has forgotten the words. But still, she keeps it near. Her faith is not in scripture. It is in rhythm. She wakes. She gathers. She waits. Snow is soft, but never kind. It whispers over the ground like ash. Once, villagers tried to conceive this season. Some said it was a curse, that something beneath the soil had turned angry. Others said it was a test, that God weighed their endurance against something greater. But over time, no one asked anymore. The questions felt too heavy to lift. The truth may be simpler. This is what happens when no one comes. When the roads disappear beneath rot and mud. When the bridges collapse and letters stop arriving. When kings forget where their people live. When the world shrinks to firewood, soup bones, and the sound of snow settling on roofs. She returns to her hut. The door is made from a cart's wheelboard, its hinges rusted stiff. Inside, the air holds the damp breath of wood and old earth. She lights a fire from the twigs she found, coaxing the flame. With a patience learned through grief, it flickers to life, small, hungry, trembling. In its glow, her face becomes something between woman and stone. Her cheeks are hollow, her eyes wide and watchful. But in the firelight, she looks like the saints carved into chapel walls, worn down, yes, but eternal. She eats what little there is. A crust of bread soaked in boiled nettles. She chews slowly, as though each bite must last until the thaw. Outside, the wind presses against the walls, trying to find a way in. There are no stories here. No grand wars, no noble banners caught in battle. There is only this: hunger, silence, and the will to endure. She has no name history remembers, no line in a book. But she is not forgotten by the cold. It knows her steps. It listens for her breath. Still, she wakes. She gathers. She waits. The fire dims. She presses her hands near the embers, not for warmth, but to remind herself she is still here. In the far distance, something groans, wood splitting under ice. A sound like the land exhaling. She looks toward the door, not in fear, but hoping that maybe, just maybe, someone is coming. Even if no one ever does, she will rise again tomorrow. She will step out into the snow with bare feet and hope in her chest. Like a flicker of flame that refuses to die. She is no legend. She is a truth history forgot to write. The fog hangs low like a secret. It clings to the trees, weeping from their branches, thickening over the trail where hooves press into mud and pine needles with a soft, wet sound. The donkey breathes heavily, its sides rising like bellows, and behind it walks a boy, thin, tired, no more than 12. His boots are too large. One is held together by twine. Each step is a prayer made with sore feet and a clenched jaw. The sacks tied across the donkey's back are split at the seams, grain leaking like sand through an hourglass. He notices but says nothing. He has learned already that grief is too heavy to bear with hunger. Behind him, the forest breathes, not peace, but vigilance. The trees bend inward like old monks, murmuring with the creak of branches. Crows follow at a distance, silent, curious. Their black eyes do not blink. They remember the fire. His village is gone. 2 days back, buried under smoke and ash. The raiders had no flag, no colors, only blades and fire, and the sound of horses thundering through the night. His mother did not scream. She only looked at him, wide-eyed and pointed. A sharp, urgent gesture toward the trail. Then she pushed him. One shove, one farewell. No time for words. He never saw her fall. But he carries the silence of that moment like a wound that won't bleed. The boy owns no sword. His hands are too small for a man's weapon. What he carries instead is a slingshot, leather cracked from sun and rain, and a small token tied to his belt. A carving of a wheat stalk, smoothed by years of worry touch. He doesn't know who made it. Maybe his father. Maybe someone else who disappeared before memory began. He walks not for glory, not for vengeance. He walks because there is nowhere to stop. And this endless moving is the truth of the age. Not kings and castles or names etched in iron, but this boy, this donkey, this dirt road winding through breathless trees. These were the dark ages, not in title, but in feeling. In the weight of each choice, every traveler became their own nation. A shared glance on the road could be a pact or a threat. A fire at night could bring warmth, or the edge of a knife. He does not pray aloud. He's forgotten most words. But each night, before sleep, he presses his thumb to the wheat stalk charm. Not for answers, for remembering. By the third night, his legs tremble beneath him. Hunger gnaws with hollow teeth. The cold speaks through his skin. But then, in the fog, a shape emerges. A broken chapel. Its roof has collapsed inward like folded wings. Stone walls lean with ivy and moss. The saints on the wall are headless, worn smooth by rain. He enters quietly, as if afraid to wake the ghosts. Inside, it is cold, but dry. A shattered font rests near the door, empty now, just stone and stillness. At the far end, beside a crooked altar, an angel watches over the ruin. Its face is cracked, its hands chipped. But its posture, open arms, upturned palms, still offers something. A promise that someone once believed. He curls beneath the angel's feet and closes his eyes. For the first time since the village, he allows himself to weep. Not loud, just a soft leaking grief. It doesn't last long. The cold will not allow it. Outside, the fog thickens, swallowing the forest whole. Weeks will pass before he finds another soul. Roads lie ruined ahead. The next fire he sees may not be safe. But he will go on, because there is no other way. In the chapel, the stone angel leans quietly above him. Its shadow falls across the boy's thin frame like a blessing. He is not forgotten. He is simply unseen. And somewhere far ahead, in a village not yet burned, a candle flickers in a window, waiting for someone who has not yet arrived. Rain taps like quiet fingers across the patchwork roof, soft, steady, almost human. The night has no moon, only drifting mist and the faint glow of fire through slats of timber. Inside, the warmth holds steady. Shadows dance on the clay walls, stitched with straw and sweat. A carpenter leans over a cradle. His hands are rough, scarred. From war, from work, from winter, but they move with surprising gentleness. He wipes them on a tunic darkened by pitch, fingers streaked with sap and soot. The cradle is small, carved from alder, smoothed at the corners, silent but waiting. On a low bench beside him, his tools lie in quiet rest. 2 bone-handled knives dulled with use. A bent awl worn down to a stub. A chisel wrapped in cloth like a sleeping child. These are not the relics of glory. They are the instruments of survival, of memory passed through touch. His wife hums softly behind him. She sits near the wall, one hand resting on the gentle swell of her belly, the other sewing a scrap of linen into a shape only she knows. Her voice is not loud, it moves like wind through branches. barely touching the ear. But it fills the room. This is their cathedral, not stone and stained glass, not bells or vaulted ceilings, but wood warmed by breath, smoke that curls toward, low rafters, and silence rich, living silence filled with meaning. Outside, the village is no more than a scattering of thatched roofs. A crooked church at the edge of the path, its steeple leaning like a tired pilgrim. A market stump where barley is traded for cheese. Chickens sleep beneath carts. A hound watches the road from under a wagon's wheel. But inside this home, something sacred stirs. Carpenter was not always a man of peace. Once, years ago, he marched east under a baron's banner to a place where the rivers froze and the men did not return. He held a spear. He saw fire poured from towers. He walked back through the snow alone and spoke little after that. Now, he listens only to rain and the breathing of those he loves. He shapes wood like his father once did, with patience, with reverence. He does not measure by inches, but by memory, by the weight of grief and the softness of new beginnings. Each shaving curls from his chisel like a prayer, falling in golden spirals to the floor. That night, when the cradle is finished, he carries it near the hearth. He lines it with wool, lays a sprig of thyme beneath the linen, not for scent, but for luck. The fire snaps, casting amber light over the walls. His wife stands beside him now. Their eyes meet. No words are exchanged. There's nothing more to say. Outside, the rain deepens. Water runs in rivulets down the door. But inside, time has slowed. He places his hand on the edge of the cradle, rough, fingers pressing gently against the smooth wood. He remembers the march through mud, the faces of men who did not return, the sound of swords breaking in the frost. None of it matters now, not in this room. Not with her breath beside his. No bard will ever sing of this moment, no chronicler will ink their names beside kings. But long after the banners rot and the castles fall, this small cradle shaped in silence, carved in love, will endure in the rhythm of generations. And just beyond the walls, where the rain begins to taper and the stars press faintly through clouds, another cry will rise soon. Not a cry of pain, but life, and it will be enough. Smoke winds upward like a question with no answer, thin and gray, rising from chimneys that no longer warm the living. The air is thick, too still, too quiet. No footsteps echo on the stone roads. No dogs bark. No children cry. The village holds its breath beneath a pale sky. In the square, a red cross bleeds across the door of a thatched house, painted in haste with pig's blood, already flaking at the edges. It marks a truth spoken without words. Do not enter. Do not touch. This house belongs to death. Behind shuttered windows nailed tight, fear has settled like dust in every corner. The kind of fear that steals your voice, that dries your tears before they reach your cheek, that wraps around your chest until each breath feels like a betrayal of those who can no longer take one. Inside one home, lit only by a dying ember, a woman kneels. Her hands tremble over a small, still form. Her son. She does not cry. Her eyes are dry, red from nights without sleep. Instead, she sings, a lullaby in Breton, old and broken and soft, not for comfort, but to keep from screaming. To hold back the sound that would tear her open, she wraps him in. Linen soaked with vinegar, a ritual taught by women now gone. Her fingers move slowly, as if the cloth might still warm in her hands, as if breath might return with care. She does not know where the illness came from. Maybe the rats. Maybe the man from the next village who coughed into the bread stall and vanished. But she knows it came fast. Fever, then silence. A priest's voice carries through the fog. Libera me, Domini, de morte aeterna. Free me, O Lord, from eternal death. He walks alone, steps muffled by mud. His robes are damp. His hands are steady, holding a swinging censer that trails pale silver smoke through the air like threads of mercy. His mask is beaked, stuffed with lavender and mint. He smells. Nothing. He sees only doors. He does not knock. He does not stop. Inside, the widow stands. Her fingers brush the boy's hair again. Then she lifts him, cradles him like she did when he was new to the world, but her arms no longer shake from the weight. He is too light now, too quiet. She opens the window just enough to slide him through, wrapped and still, to the earth below. No ceremony, no bell, no words. She places a wooden cross beside him, a thin stick lashed with twine. Then she closes the window again, not gently, not roughly, just firmly, like sealing a chapter she never wanted to write. This was the Dark Ages. Not the stories of knights or feasts, but rooms like this, grief wrapped in linen, the silence after a lullaby, the hollow sound of nothing moving outside. Yet even here, there was ritual. There was the whisper of love inside the rot, a cross on the ground, a song to no one. And somewhere behind another shuttered door, another mother sings, or prays, or wait to see if fever comes. The air carries rosemary and rot, fear and ashes, but it also carries something else, the last threads of human care. Because even in this, when hope seemed thin as smoke, there were hands that held the dead. There were lullabies. There was love. And somewhere beyond the last house, the priest's chant fades into the fog. It is not over. Not yet. Wind claws at the cliffs with ancient fingers, dragging salt through the narrow cracks of stone. The sea roars far below, unseen, but always heard like time itself, never still, never kind. Above it all, a monastery clings to the rock like a breath held too long, waiting for something to pass. Prayer flags hang in tatters, their colors washed too, pale ghosts of devotion. Rain has worn them thin, yet still they flutter, pulled by gusts that carry both chill and memory. The path to the cloister is steep, carved by bare feet in prayer. No visitor arrives here by accident. Inside, the walls are silent. Cold seeps in from the stone. Candles burn low, casting long, flickering shadows across the floor. Each flame is a fragile defiance, each flicker a vow. The scriptorium is small, just a single room, its ceiling arched like a ribcage. Damp manuscripts rest on rough-hewn shelves, their pages curled at the corners. The smell is of wax, parchment, and worn leather. Sacred things. Mortal things. An old monk sits hunched over a piece of parchment, his fingers calloused and stained. The inkpot rests beside him like a shadow. His quill scratches in steady rhythm, the Latin verses unfolding from memory. The original is gone, stolen in a raid, trampled by fire, lost to the chaos that always waits outside. But the words live. Because he remembers. Because he writes. His robes are patched at the knees, his back bent with years of quiet labor. He does not speak. There is no need. The work speaks for him. Line by line, letter by letter. He writes not for recognition, not even for God. He writes for continuity. So the thread of meaning does not snap. Outside, kingdoms rise and crumble, banners change, villages burn. But inside these walls, time is heavy and slow, thick as wax. It pools in corners, it lingers on breath. It gathers on the tip of a quill. A novice steps softly into the room, barefoot, carrying a chipped bowl of bean stew and a cracked cup of wine. His hands are small, still learning how to carry care without spilling it. He bows, low and long, and waits. The old monk does not look up, only nods faintly. The boy sets the meal down and lingers. He watches the elder's hand glide over the parchment, careful and slow. He does not speak, but in his chest something stirs. This will be his task too. One day, not yet, but soon. The torch here is passed not in flame, but in ink. In silence. Above them hangs a single iron bell. It is not rung for hours or schedules, it tolls for memory. Each time it sounds, it remembers a brother lost to fever, to hunger, to the blade. A soft sound. A sound that bends the heart but does not break it. When the final stroke of the quill is laid, the page is gently blotted, then placed with care beneath a linen cloth. Later, it will be hidden tucked behind a loose stone in the wall, marked only with a simple cross. So that even if fire comes again, or the tide of war climbs this high, something will remain. Outside, the wind rises. It hammers the cliff like a war drum, searching for a way in. But inside, there's only the breath of ink drying, the slow heartbeat of endurance. Centuries will pass, armies will march, kings will die, maps will change, and the world will call. This time dark, but here, in the hush between candle and parchment, something luminous survives, not in shouts, not in swords, but in quiet hands and a single, unfinished verse. The forge breathes fire into the falling night. Its glow spills onto the dirt outside, painting the stones with amber light as shadows stretch across the yard like reaching hands. The hammer strikes again. Sparks leap into the air, burst and vanish, brief stars against a darkening sky. The smell of ash clings to everything. Smoke, sweat, scorched wool. A hymn of labor older than language. She stands at the anvil, feet planted wide. Her sleeves are pushed high, revealing arms thick with effort and years. Her hair is twisted into a knot, bound tight with a bit of twine. No jewelry, no silk, no softness. Only heat and metal. Only sound and silence. Her name is known though. Spoken with care, not out of fear but doubt. They speak in corners, behind shutters, about women with hammers. Girls with soot on their cheeks and iron beneath their nails. But the same mouths that murmur still knock on her door when their gates rot or their hinges crack. They come with coins and complaints, and she answers them not with words, but with work. In the next room, her father lies beneath a threadbare blanket. His cough rattles the beams, wet and sharp. The bellows broke him long ago, lungs blackened by a lifetime of fire. Once he stood where she stands now. Once his hammer sang louder than the crows. But time has bent his back and dimmed his breath. She listens to him between strikes. He taught her to shape iron, read fire, and speak through steel. But he never intended to pass the forge to his daughter. Life chose otherwise. And now, the weight of it all rests on her shoulders, an anvil in the chest, a flame in the bones. The night deepens. The forge hisses. She shapes a chain for the inn's door, its links glowing orange, cooling to silver. She tests each one, pulls hard. No weakness, no bend. Then a hook for the baker, simple, clean, strong. These are not weapons, but they are necessary things. Things that bind, lift, hold. Quiet pieces of survival. She knows the village watches. I know some guys laugh behind their teeth. But none of them could temper steel like she can. None of them knows fire patience the way it teaches, the way it tests. Each blow is more than craft. It is a memory. Her mother embroidered prayers into linen, threaded hopes into fabric, soft and slow. Her prayers are different. She folds them into metal. With every ring of the hammer, she speaks without sound. I am here. I will endure. Tonight is for the village. But tomorrow she will try something harder. Something unspoken, a blade. She's never made one before. It is not just forging, it is what a blade means. Her father whispered of movement in the east, whispers of soldiers, of lords sharpening hunger, of borders fraying like old rope. She felt the chill in his voice, and so she has gathered the coal, set aside the steel, measured and weighted. Tomorrow she will begin. Not for glory, not for war, but because something is shifting, in the wind, in the woods, in the silence between coughs. Outside, dogs bark, a child cries. Smoke rises into the dusk like a dark ribbon drawn by unseen hands. The stars are slow to come. But still, she works. The hammer lifts, falls, sings. In that rhythm, steady and strong, there is defiance. There is memory. There is hope. The blade will come. The world may burn. But tonight, beneath the hiss of flame and the breath of dying embers, she holds the darkness at bay with nothing more than fire and will. Snow falls like ash from a broken sky. It lands on shoulders hunched with sorrow, on cloaks soaked through and stiff with ice, on the bare feet of peasants who walk in. Silence behind the hooded monks. The field is hard with frost. Each step cracks the earth beneath, but the procession does not stop. They move slowly, deliberate, reverent, as if the weight they carry might shatter with sudden motion. At the center, a wooden reliquary, small but sacred. It holds bones dry and ancient, the remains of a saint whose name once echoed in choirs and whispered in dying breath. Now he rides through the cold in silence, guarded not by soldiers but by prayers. Prayers muttered through chapped lips, bleeding tongues, lungs thin from the cold. Soft bells ring with every step. The monks wear brown robes tied with rope. Their faces are pale, hidden beneath hoods. But it is not fear that bows their heads. It is faith or something that looks like it. Behind them walk the hungry, the bent, the forgotten. They follow, not because they must, but because they believe. Or because belief is all that's left. Midwinter holds the world in its fist. The snow approves. It hushes all things. Even the wolves keep their distance. They carry the saint eastward, away from ruin. His old chapel lies in splinters, desecrated by men from the Sea Vikings who burned crosses, shattered altars, spilled wine as if it were water. This journey is not a retreat. It is a rescue, not flesh but meaning. They believe the bones can hold back the plague, that famine shrinks in their presence, that sin cannot take root where he rests. They pass a village. It leans into itself, roofs sunken, fences broken, livestock bone thin. Children watch from behind broken shutters. An old man touches his brow. A woman lifts her apron in trembling hands. The ground here knows sorrow, but when the procession nears, candles begin to glow. A strange warmth flickers behind glass and rag. Hands cross themselves. Whispers rise like smoke. Not words, just sound, half memory, half prayer. A child, barefoot, steps from a doorway. She holds out an apple, shriveled and brown, its skin cracked by frost. She doesn't speak. She only looks. One of the monks bends and takes it with a nod. The gift is placed gently near the reliquary. It is the only offering made that day. At the next village, the chapel stands crooked. Its roof sags beneath years of snow. The wind whistles through gaps in the stone. But there is still a place for him, an altar still intact, dusted clean with sleeves and hope. The bones are placed with care. No ceremony, just silence. The priest kneels. His fingers tremble as they touch the wooden lid. His shoulders shake. He weeps not for the relic, but for what it brings. Continuity, a thread unbroken in a world unraveling. Behind him, villagers kneel. Some close their eyes. Some do not. A girl watches from the shadows. She says nothing. Her stomach knots with hunger. She does not understand holiness, but something about the moment roots inside her. She will take the veil someday, not because she longs for God, but because the convent feeds its own. And yet tonight, something deeper stirs. Not hope, not yet, but a kind of waiting, a kind of quiet strength. Outside, the sky darkens. Wolves cry, distant and sharp. The trees sway in the night wind. The chapel shudders. The snow has not stopped. Inside, one candle burns beside the reliquary. Its flame dances low, trembling as though uncertain, and still it burns. Through hunger, through sorrow, through the long weight of history. This light does not scream. It does not sing. It only endures. And in its flicker, time holds its breath. The room is too quiet for a man about to die. Curtains barely move in the still air, though the wind outside howls like something wounded. It rushes past the stone battlements, rattling through arrow slits, but never enters. The thick walls of the tower chamber hold it at bay. Inside, time is slow and heavy like wet wool draped across the soul. He lies beneath furs that no longer warm him. Skin once sun-browned from years of battle now clings pale to brittle bone. His breath crackles like dry leaves underfoot, irregular, distant. The lavender sachets placed by the bed can't mask the smell of old blood and failing organs. Death, when it comes for lords, smells just the same as it does for beggars. Beside him, a priest murmurs the rites of the dying. The Latin rolls off his tongue like a lullaby learned in childhood. He does not pause, does not look for signs. His words are not for the living. The servant girl shifts, silent as a ghost. She soaks a cloth in watered wine and presses it to the nobleman's cracked lips. He blinks slowly. There is no fear in his eyes, only something deeper. Regret. Regret wears no armor. Once he ruled these lands. His banner flew above these towers. His falcon, the one now circling far above, had returned to his glove with precision. He had led men into battle, judged disputes, signed edicts. He believed himself fair, believed justice had guided his hand. But memory, in the end, does not bow to belief. Memory is wild. It chooses what it keeps. On a table, forgotten in the hush of the chamber, lies a small wooden box. Its hinges are worn, its corners stained with wax. Inside, letters. Folded, yellowed, sealed, letters never sent. Words for a brother lost in a distant crusade. Words meant for a son never claimed. He wrote them in the quiet hours when pride was asleep and grief walked freely. But he never sent them. That was the coward's cost. And now, by custom, they will burn with him. Fire will take what silence could not. His chest rises, falls, rises slower. Then, one last breath, a whisper with no strength. A name forms on his lips. No one leans close enough to hear it. The falcon dives once above the tower, swift and sudden, then vanishes into the gray beyond. Below, the world continues. Barley bends under tired hands. Peasants work the fields with aching backs and quiet mouths. They do not know their lord is dying. They will not cry. They will not stop. They will remember taxes, levies, conscription. Not the man who gave them. Death is not about memory. It is about departure. By morning, a black cloth will hang from the tower window. It will flap in the cold wind, a signal seen but not mourned. And then quietly, almost politely, the world will move on. The harvest must be finished. The bread must be baked. The falcon will not return.